Hello and welcome to episode number 48 of The Real List, a podcast about our real list. I'm your host, Ellis.
And I'm your host, Gloria, and today's selection is from me.
And today's episode is about a week late. We watched this movie over a week ago, and we were ready to film the episode on it, and then you were called away because your cousin was giving birth, and you had to be there.
Yes, my cousin had her baby!
So this would have been on time were it not for that. But we're not taking the time off. We're not pushing episodes. We're not doing nothing. We're going to get another episode out before the end of the week, and then hopefully a third one out shortly thereafter, and then just sort of pick things up from there. But anyway, yeah, so what is this movie?
This is Balto. This movie came out in 1995. It is directed by Simon Wells, screenplay done by Cliff Ruby, Elena Lesser, David Stephen Cohen, Roger S.H. Skulkman.
Honestly, Elena Lesser really lived in the shadow of her sister Elena Greater for a long time, and this is, of course, starring Matt Damon, the first horse on Alaska.
No, it's not. No, this is not Matt Damon. It's Kevin Bacon.
First Bacon on Mars.
Kevin Bacon, Bridget Fonda, Jim Cummings, Phil Collins, and Bob Hoskins?
Bob Hoskins, yeah. This is the Phil Collins.
Yes.
That as in, what is that? That's
Tarzan.
In the Air Tonight? Is that Phil Collins? What is his extraordinarily famous song? Yeah, In the Air Tonight. I saw the name Phil Collins and I went, there's no way that's the same guy.
I can feel it.
Man, it's disappointing that there wasn't a... Wait, who was Phil Collins during this?
Phil Collins was Muck and
Phil
Luck.
Collins was Muck and Luck? Oh my god. He was... Oh. I can't make a joke out of this. I can't find a way to weave Colin in the Air Tonight, with these pair of dumb comic relief polar bears that can't swim, except they can. They didn't want to. Sorry, yeah. Spoilers.
So this is a film that takes place in Nome, Alaska in 1925. And the whole story is based off Balto, who is a wolf dog hybrid, and is basically outcasted by everybody else in town because they're like, oh, he's a wolf. He's dangerous.
In real life, he was not, in fact.
He was not, he was not, in fact, in real life.
They took the most white bread, like they could have made an excellent movie out of it, but they wanted to make a kids movie out of it, so they changed,
they're like,
every possible thing about the main character.
Let's make a movie about an animal who gets discriminated against, but in the end, he becomes the hero.
Yes.
Basically.
I feel like they could have done so many things, but instead they adapted this real life story, and I'm not, bothered by it, but it is kind of bonkers, the enormous artistic liberties that were taken with the plot and the main character, and, every other character, because none of the other people existed. Balto's the only, through thread between real life and the movie, and it's not even the same dog, even remotely.
No.
But, they made a good movie out of it, so.
It was a good movie, and, so basically it's, Grandma Rosie, the little girl in the story. She's telling the story to her granddaughter as they're in New York City looking for Balto's statue, and...
In Central Park.
Sorry, I'm itchy. But, so it brings you to, Balto, and they have, sled racing. I'm drawing blanks. Why am I drawing blanks?
Why are you drawing blanks?
I don't know.
What do you want about?
I'm trying to explain the plot so we can get to talking about the movie.
I mean, Balto is a really good boy.
Is a really good boy who saves a bunch of people by going out and saving the sled team that was originally sent out to get the elixir or the antitoxin.
Yeah, the antitoxin to, what was the disease?
Di-
Diphtheria.
Diphtheria.
Which is not something that I've ever heard of, but that's apparently was a big deal because the whole damn town had it. That's another artistic liberty, which is that in the movie only the kids get it.
Yeah,
but in real life, effing everyone in the town had diphtheria. They also weren't out in real life. They weren't out of the antitoxin, but it was all expired, so they had to get more. Yeah. And this is the really interesting part. The 600-mile long run was done in a relay in real life. There were, in fact,
so there were like outposts set up for like different sled teams.
Mm-hmm. There were, I think, 19 different sled teams to get it over that distance as fast as possible. And the real life Balto was in the second to last one, but instead of meeting up with the last one, they just pushed on and went all the way through.
Yeah, because Balto was supposed to be the fastest dog.
Even though he was not.
In this movie, he was.
Yeah, we should probably talk about the movie itself, which is that they really kept throwing plot beats at us that I was not expecting. Like, it's a pretty short movie, but every time I thought it was like, oh, cool, we've wrapped it up, and like, we're gonna move on now. And no, crazy stuff keeps happening. I mean, from the very beginning, or relatively close to the beginning, when they run all the dogs and Balto wins, and I was like, oh, this is going to be an interesting thing with, like, him and Steel on the team together, and they're going to have to, like, get to deal with one another.
But Steel is an arrogant prick.
Yeah, but Steel gets him disqualified because they're afraid of his wolfiness. And so then he goes and he sulks to his best buddy, Boris,
the snow goose,
the best character in this film.
Literally, Boris carries this film.
Another one. I don't think Boris was around in real life. I feel like this Russian goose was
Boris.
But they have such a great camaraderie. Like, I wish I could remember more of the movie.
One.
Should we? Is it any good? There are two. There's a second and third one, and they were both released straight to home video.
I remember watching the second one.
Yeah.
The second one was good because it was continuing on his story. It was like, oh, here's what happened after Balto won the race. And he became a hero. He had a family.
Mm-hmm.
With his love interest, Jenna, who is a husky. Right?
Yes? Question mark? Something
Where's
like
Bridget
that.
Fonda? Cause...
Copper and white Siberian husky, yes. Rosie's pet as well as Balto's love interest. Her facial design is based on Audrey Hepburn, which is awesome.
How?
Okay. I see it. I get it. That's very interesting. Russian snow goose. For Boris Gusinov. His last name is Gusinov. So fantastic. Boris is the only animal here with a last name, and it's effing Gusinov. Oh, I missed the trash can. God damn.
And then Jim Cummings is Steel.
Steel was,
Jim Cummings, the guy who does the voice of Winnie the Pooh, was an arrogant prick?
Apparently. Well, no, Steel was an arrogant prick. Jim Cummings was just acting.
Well, I know that.
Okay, just making sure. Brendan Fraser was originally voiced at Cast Steel. That's fantastic.
I would have loved that.
You would have been like, Brendan Fraser's a prick?
Well, I like Brendan Fraser. And I also like Jim Cummings, too.
Honestly, the voice acting for Steel stands out as very good to me.
Yeah.
I thought it was pretty solid. And he's a character you love to hate. And I like the fact that he never gets a redemption. Like, I don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was an interesting choice, because a lot of these kids' movies, they have the villain turn out sympathetic. Okay, it's kind of flip a coin whether the villain is just bad for bad's sake. And maybe I'm too used to sympathetic villains in the modern era. But I expected some sort of, like, oh, I'm sorry from Steel at some point. at some point have a wake up call, maybe after you're getting beaten up by Balto, but not actually beaten up by Balto. He was just sort of, you know, rabble rousing. I did like that sequence with
What
Balto
sequence?
trying to take the medicine and Steel trying to stop him no matter
Oh
what.
yeah. When I first saw this movie, I was very young. I remember watching this on VHS.
Yeah.
My grandmother had this on VHS, and
You're right. You're making me yawn now, son of a gun.
sorry, I have a scab in my nose.
I'm glad the audience knows that now.
Well, whatever. Um, yeah, the scene with Steel and Balto fighting over the medicine was Balto was only trying to help, and Steel was too big of himself to accept the actual help as what, like, he didn't want any help, and he was like, you know, screw you. And then he tried to convince everybody that they were dead.
He tried to convince everyone that we're dead. Before that, he tried to screw up them getting home by making
by
all the
messing up
marks
with
on the
tracking.
trees, which was another thing where I just went like, okay, cool. Like, we've got, Balto's here. He's got the medicine. He's got all the dogs on his side. Steel just fell down a cliff or whatever. Cool. We're done with that part of it. We're gonna get home and save the day now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Again, this movie is not even an hour and a half long. It's not even an hour and 20 minutes. It's 78 minutes long. And it feels so much longer because they keep throwing stuff at you in a good way of just more things going wrong.
How about that scene where when they first go to, where Balto first goes to meet up with them, and not Rosie, Jenna tags along, Boris tags along, and Muck and Luck tags along, and then they're having their snowball fight,
Mm-hmm.
and there was that scene in the woods where you could see them in the trees, and then you're like, oh, something's lurking in the woods. Something's lurking in the woods, and then the bear attack happens.
Jenna wasn't, like, explicitly with them at that point. She was just sort of, like, it's revealed that she is following during the grizzly bear fight.
Yes, she comes a little after the grizzly bear fight, I think.
No, I mean, she saves them during the grizzly bear fight,
Yes,
and that's when she
does.
gets injured and they have to take her back.
Yeah.
Which was another thing that, like, okay, now Balto's all alone. Like, that was another thing that just sort of came out of nowhere for me. Like, it is such a shame this movie got buried underneath Toy Story, which came out around the same time.
Is it really?
Yes, that's why this movie was a flop. It made like $11 million on a $31 million budget. Yeah. At the box office, it did well with home video releases, but
I really like this movie
because it's good is the issue. It doesn't deserve to have just like gone forgotten, despite the historical inaccuracies and artistic liberties. It doesn't like deserve.
I thought the art was fine. Like
the artistic liberties being like the historical inaccuracies, and they divorced it from real life to tell a better story. And honestly, I mean, you're not like marginalizing anyone by doing this. It's perfectly fine. I feel like.
We should watch Hachi next.
Hachi?
Yeah.
Is that another dog movie?
It's another dog movie.
Mm.
That's the dog that's sitting at the train station in Woonsocket.
Oh,
dog
okay.
statue.
Okay. But yeah, that's. It is so. It's very well paced in that they managed to find a way to fit all of these things in without it feeling rushed.
Mm-hmm. The movie is very well paced, and the story is great, and it may be, it's briefly, like not briefly, not the word I'm looking for. It's mostly true. Mostly true.
No, I would say it's mostly not true. I mean, the only through thread is that Gnome needed medicine, and there was a dog named Balto. Yeah, there's not a lot true about it, but it's an interesting story, and it's a well-written movie. I will say there was one scene in particular which tickled me, which was the attempt to fly them the medicine.
Mm-hmm.
Something about
The
like
little plane.
old school. Yeah, exactly. These early. I mean, this is 1925, so it's post World War One, but that era of aircraft where people are just
Are
figuring
you
out
eating the bed?
just
No.
figuring out how to make planes that.
Get out. Go. Go lay in your crate. He's eating the bed.
What do you mean he's eating the bed?
He's eating the fluff out of the bed. Is what I mean.
Not but yet.
I just watched him.
Don't eat the bed.
He was literally pulling the fluff out of the bed.
You have food. All right. The dog movie has been interrupted by our own dog being just an idiot.
I can't believe you. But I totally can.
I'm not surprised. But anyway. Yeah, okay, fine, I'll move. Just the attempts to get them the antitoxin, and yeah, we're going to fly the antitoxin, and just seeing them like puttering around the field with that plane was just very amusing to me for some reason.
And they're like, we're gonna go by steam!
Yeah, and then we're gonna go by train, which I was like, hey, that's the Alaska Railroad. Graham worked on the Alaska Railroad.
Oh my god.
And I was just looking up like where the stop is. What was the
it was
Ninana.
Nanana.
Yeah.
And then what did you think of the scene? What did you think of the little bulldog with the guy that worked the what is it called?
Oh, the telegraph office?
Yeah.
What about him?
With the dog with the ears, and the ears would just go off.
I was like, oh, the poor thing. He's being affected by the telegraph sound. I also felt really bad for the sort of butt monkey of the group of three that were following Steele around.
Oh,
the
yeah,
one that kept getting hit in the head. Yeah. The one that was getting beat up on did not deserve it.
No.
Not at all. Like, he might not have been as quick on the draw as the other ones, but there's the really annoying one that keeps saying superlatives, and then there's the second one, and then there's him. Poor guy.
Yeah.
Is what I'm saying. Like, nobody deserves that. This is why hanging around a jerk turns you into a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Because I bet they would have been perfectly fine, well-adjusted people, or well-adjusted puppers, were it not for hanging around Steele.
Also, what about that scene where they're running through the ice cavern, and they're trying to in the box with all the antitoxins starting to come open.
That was really cool.
And then
shot.
Balto just pushes the box closed with his feet, and then just gets the sled back in order. Gets the sled back in line.
That was really, really cool. Balto showing off his like smarts and aptitude during this movie is part of what makes it.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to do all this stuff. I mean, I feel like the one part where I was like, okay, he could not have. Where is he? The one part where I was thinking he could not have done that, which is weird considering, like, many of the things that he did are things that a dog would be reasonably, completely incapable of doing. Like,
well, remember, he's also half wolf.
Okay, but no matter what, like, they're physical impossibilities, like him jumping back and kicking the box closed and then getting back to the front of the pack. Like, you can't do that. But it's an animated kids movie, so whatever, it flies. It's really cool. It worked out, and it shows him being very agile and whatever.
It was really cool.
It was. But him hauling the box up the cliff after he falls off and he gets like the pep talk.
That's really unrealistic.
I thought he was going to find another way around, and I thought that would have been really cool and smart.
But no, he carries it up a giant cliff.
He drags it straight up a cliff. You know what? Whatever.
Sure.
If that's what it takes to get Boris going, doing a dog cannot do this alone, but maybe a wolf can. I really like that callback and that line in particular. Mm-hmm. So if that's what it takes, sure.
Boris is my favorite character. Like, when you first get introduced to the two polar bears and they're like, Uncle Boris! And all you just see is them running, and then he's just trying to hide. He's trying to hide from the two polar bears. And they find him, and then they're just like hugging him, and he's like, oh, great. Here they are, here to cause more problems.
Muck and Luck, I don't know what my feelings are on Muck and Luck because they're just
Dumb.
catastrophic comedic relief. And I mean they do their job well, but it's one of those things that it's like, okay, these are here explicitly because it's a kids movie. Otherwise, Boris would be all the comic relief you ever need.
Also, I wanted to point out is that there were 2 full-grown polar bears in town when they came back from getting the antitoxin in town with all those people, and nobody was freaking out.
Yeah, everyone freaks out about Boris because he's half wolf. Meanwhile, there are
Balto, not
sorry,
Boris.
yeah, Boris.
Boris is the
Boris
goose.
is goose. Yep.
Balto is dog.
They were freaking out about Balto being half wolf. Meanwhile, there are 2 full-on polar bears, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, these are fine.
These are fine." But
These
this
are
half
perfectly
this half wolf half dog is no.
Well, you said you knew. You said you knew the grizzly bear was a grizzly bear, and I just want to go back to the sort of bear identification, which is, you know, if it's black, fight back. If it's brown, lie down. If it's white, good night. Like polar bears are extremely murderous. You generally do not see them unless you are about to die by them. So,
And if you see a baby, the mother's not far behind.
Yeah. So what told you that it was a grizzly bear? Because you mentioned this before we started.
Because when they're doing that scene with the grizzly bear, everything is like black. All you see is black, and then you see the giant glowing eyes.
Mm-hmm.
But there's that shade, that tint of brown when the bear is moving sometimes, and like you could tell because it's like, okay, so if the light isn't gonna make the bear
brown
any different color, if the bear's black, the bear's gonna remain black. But he had that brown highlight to him when he was moving.
I think the way they showed the bear was very cool.
Yes.
Just the
black shadow and,
making him into this larger-than-life beast. It's funny because you have, again, 2 polar bears that are on your side, and all the other animals are, like, able to communicate with one another and stuff. Meanwhile, the bear is just a force of nature. He's just a bear, yeah. You know how I knew it was a grizzly bear? Because it was trying to kill them. That's how I knew. Because they would not have had a black bear do that. But either way, if there's a bear running at me, you bet there's going to be a streak of brown. So...
I want to go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bring me my brown trousers.
Bring me my brown trousers.
So, it took me... I probably should have picked up earlier on Rosie being the grandmother from the beginning of the movie. Because I didn't realize it until right before they officially revealed it.
Grandma Rosie!
Yeah, when we go back to them in the present, and they're in front of Balto's statue, and I just was like, oh, okay, that's probably Rosie. Just, it took me a minute because I kind of forgot there was the human element to the story, which also threw me for a loop at the beginning of the movie.
Do you think the movie was going to be live action?
No, I knew the movie was animated, and we started it, and I went, what the hell are these people?
Who are these people?
Yeah, I don't want to see these people. Show me some animated dogs.
Show me some animated snow.
Give me a goose.
Give me some animated snow.
But this was the first time I saw this movie, which I feel like if I told Weibold, he would be like, you had never seen Balto before right now?
Why? He knows this movie?
Yes. He named a ship on the original Warship server, the Balto. And that then became the thing that tied that fictitious universe, alternate timeline that we made together to the Iron Horseman. Because the Balto, the ship, gets mentioned in the first episode of the Iron Horseman Chronicles. So, this movie is the reason that the Iron Horseman Chronicles has as intricate lore as it does. And I had been hearing him make Boris jokes. And, mention Balto, and I knew that it was a movie, but I had no context for that until just now.
Well, now you can tell him that you've seen this movie.
I will, given the opportunity. So, what Do you have any more questions or
What
thoughts
was
or
your
whatever?
what was your favorite like part of this movie?
Every part with Boris in it. No,
Boris.
there were some parts that I feel like I should have liked more. Actually,
What
them
parts?
making the aurora in the basement with the glass,
Oh
like that's supposed
yeah,
to be
that's
very
so
pretty and
pretty.
sweet, and I'm just like, huh, okay.
You
But
just turned trash into art.
yeah, uh, me IRL. Except I'm not art. What? Glory's gonna beat me up. Um, but that, and then when she goes and like does it again to like
On the
cast the
rocks.
yeah, and I was like, oh, like that's neat. What's Balto doing? Like, I don't really care
What's the
about
other
this.
dog
Yeah,
doing?
no, I want to know what's going on. Like, they keep throwing stuff at Balto, and he's out in the wilderness. So like, what am I gonna like? Why do I care about the aurora right now? Um, unless there are steamed hams that come with it. I what was my favorite part? Honestly, either either Steele getting found out when Balto gets back, you know, because
Fuck him.
we haven't touched on the gossip circle at all.
Oh yeah, the little
Um,
goth circle in the barn.
in the boiler room, which is very funny because Balto shows off like his smarts by pulling the things to get into the boiler room, right?
Hmm.
How are all the other dogs getting in there just casually all the time?
There's got to
Like,
be like a doggy door
like
somewhere.
right? How is he getting? How is it so special that Balto can get in there, but every other dog gets in there like normal, like just fine? Maybe it's a different. Is it a different building? Am I confused about which room it is? But yeah, it's either that
I
or
think it was a different room because the hospital was well, the hospital, quote
Mhm.
unquote, was next to. I don't think it was the same boiler room. I think it had to be a different one because it was like
I don't know.
I don't know.
It'd be weird if there were two. But anyway, point is, I think it was either when Balto gets back with the medicine or the grizzly bear fight, because the grizzly bear fight is very cool.
Mm.
Um, a lot of the like bounding through the snow, the ice cave stuff, I was like, okay, sure.
In Balto 2 Wolf Quest, there's more of those like pretty cavern scenes, like
Yeah.
with the you know with the icicles and stuff.
I don't know how you could follow these up with a sequel. I mean, maybe if you really just cared about Balto and wanted more Balto, but like the stakes and the
I mean, I understand the second one, give it like a follow up film because
Mhm.
like I feel like after the first one ended, people wanted to see what happened after him and Jenna finally
Get it on.
found love,
Yeah.
loved each other and became like a little family.
Hmm.
So I mean, I understand the sequel in that aspect, but I mean, I don't understand the third one. I've never seen the third one. I've only seen the first two.
Okay. Well, either way, what's your favorite bit then?
From
Yeah,
this,
from this one.
um, I have to say when Steele is stealing the sausage when they first find out that
Oh,
Rosie's
that's a.
sick,
I totally
and
forgot about that
Jenna
scene.
and Jenna's trying to like seduce him because Steele has like this raging problem with Balto for some reason.
Hmm.
And out of nowhere, though, like just out of the cut, like Steele just has a problem with him, and so Jenna is grabbing the end of like the other end of it, and he kind of just backs up into the hot coals,
Oh yeah,
the hot
that's a good
grate.
moment. The whole thing with the sausages is so infuriating because the blame gets pinned on Balto
Balto.
for no reason. Like I can't even understand what the humans were thinking in that moment. It's I don't know. Um, it's just one of those things. But anyway, um, what are you rating this movie? Where is it?
I'll give it a 4.5
Give it a 4.5.
because it's a childhood film that I used to watch, growing up, and I was, it's a part of my childhood. Any film that I grew up watching, I mean, it aged well in my opinion. You know,
Well, I
I
can't say I wasn't entertained seeing it for the first time at not as a child. You know.
yeah, I mean, but you
So I'm giving it a 4 because part of me wants to give it a 3.5, but I don't think it deserves that. I think it deserves more just over its lifetime. I'm gonna give it a little bit of extra here because it it got screwed. Like it could have been a much bigger, better film than this, but everyone was going to see Toy Story instead. So
Toy Story came out in '95.
it came out like a month before this movie.
Did
Yeah, hang on. Where's yeah, release. Yeah. It was released in December '95, and then in international theaters in January '96. It was vastly overshadowed by Toy Story, which had premiered a month earlier.
oh
So yeah, it's and it doesn't even have like a good approval rating. But
56%
yeah, I know
Rotten
on Rotten
Tomatoes.
Tomatoes.
Oh, what do they know what they're talking about?
It's just kind of a shame. I feel like this would be more highly rated.
What do they know?
I feel like it deserves better.
It does.
All right,
Uh,
we're gonna sit down and watch It's a Wonderful Life finally. Uh, we don't have to do it right this second, but we do have to do it, and
yeah,
then
I know.
we need
And
to watch
then
that and then Hamilton
Hamilton.
for the 50th episode, the live or the face cam episode, I guess. Anyway, glad we're back. Let's go watch a movie.
Woo!